What's up everyone, how's it going? And welcome back to another video here on the Jaime Staples channel. We're still in Prague, EPT Prague. The main event starts tomorrow for me. So I had a fun day, pretty much an off day, you guys. Had a nice walk around Prague, got some coffee. Brando, can we cue up some of the IG stories?
Yep.
Show a little of that action.
Put them right here.
So yeah, overall it was a really kind of chill day. But I wanted to make a vlog for you guys, and this is a common topic that I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions about, so I wanted to let you in a little bit into the world of poker tournaments and big poker tournaments. For example, the 5K I'm about to play. How do poker players have so much money? Well, the easy answer is they don't. Well, most of them don't. Some of them really do, but what happens is there's a couple ways that you can take a $5,000 buy-in and make it effectively less for you and spread out the risk, right? So in the $5,000 buy-in I'm about to play, I would say half of the field has reduced their risk in the tournament. And there's two ways to do that. One of them is backing. Backing is a common thing in poker where a good poker player that may not have a bunch of money will approach like a very successful poker player, like one of the best, or a business person, and enter a backing deal, a staking deal, right? How this works typically is that the person that is backing the player, they will have all their action. They'll put all the money up for them to enter the tournaments, every single tournament they play, right? Now, if they end up winning money, it'll be split 50% with the backer, or 40% or 60%, somewhere in there. 50% with the backer, with the person in, and the player will get to keep 50%. Now this sounds pretty great, right? Because it's like, well, I put up no money being backed into this tournament and I just won 50% of whatever I won. That's pretty amazing. But the other side is that if you go down money, you're in something called makeup. So let's say you enter $4,000 or $5,000 tournaments, you lose all four, you're in $20,000 in makeup, okay? Now you can't make any money as a player while you're in makeup until you get back to zero. So it's a pretty interesting thing in poker, right? Like you could be $20,000 in makeup, and it's not uncommon for really big name pros to be $100,000, $200,000 in makeup, where they need to big something big before they even make money from themselves at the end of the day. Now you don't owe that money. It's not a debt that you owe to the other person. It's as long as you continue playing poker, that's what you owe to the other person. You can't make a profit. If you decide, you know what, poker hasn't been great for me, I don't like this anymore, I'm really unsuccessful and I want to do something else, I quit forever, then the debt is washed and you're out and you owe no money. So there's positives and negatives, but if you ever come back to poker and you decide to play again, you're back in that makeup. Sometimes some things happen where there can be an arrangement, the backer isn't happy, the player isn't happy, and the backer will say, okay, you know what, you can buy out for, let's say, half of the amount and you can go on your own. That sort of thing happens as well. So that's the first way that people reduce their risk and can get into a tournament like this $5,000 buy-in without investing a bunch of their own money. The second way is selling action. This is a really common thing amongst a bunch of poker players. I sell action fairly frequently to people as well. So let's say we're entering a $1,000 tournament, right? And $1,000 is a little bit big for us. We don't really want to put up that much, but it's a good tournament. You know, it's promoted, it's a huge field, it should be pretty soft with a bunch of full players, so we want to play. Well, we could say, hey, let's take my friend Jeff Gross, for example, right? Jeff, I kind of want to make this tournament like $700 for me, so $300 a bit too much. Can I sell you 30% action for $300 and you'll get 30% of what I cashed for? If Jeff says yes, then all of a sudden I'm basically playing a $700 tournament for myself. But of course, the tournament to actually buy in is $1,000. So in a staking situation, and a selling action situation, let's say I cash the tournament for $2,000, well, Jeff would get 30% of $2,600. If I get $0, well, I still just have Jeff's 300 and he gets nothing. So it's effectively a way to reduce the buy-in of the tournament. So often what you see when you're seeing these 100K buy-in tournaments, these 250K buy-in tournaments, a lot of the players in there, they're the best players in the world, and they might have a big bankroll, but like investing $50,000 of their own money just isn't smart considering bankroll management. Go back a few videos and check that out, right? So often you'll see the best players in the world, they'll have 10% of themselves, 20% of themselves in these events because they make a lot of money doing it, but really they need someone helping them out to take the financial risk that has a bigger bankroll. Markup is pretty typical when it comes to selling action. Let's say you have a $1,000 tournament and you're selling it at 1.0. That means for every 1% it's $10 in action. There's no fee associated. Now let's say Brando is selling 1% of this tournament at $10, and I know he's really good. Like, he's crushing the field. He's got 100% return on investment every time he plays. Well, that's an amazing buy for me, right? And that's kind of sucky for Brando because I'm getting $10 profit in the long run, and like he's just losing out on that. So what's common is people will estimate their skill level and be like, you know what? I'm gonna charge a 1.3 markup here, which would mean I pay $13 for 1% of Brandon's action. It's worth $10 in the tournament, but assuming edge, I'm paying 13. So markup is pretty common. Sometimes you'll just get it at face with no markup, but a lot of times people will charge markup. And it's a very interesting debate. I think it's a whole separate video that you need to talk about markup and what is fair and what is justified, because it's very hotly contested in terms of how those prices should be settled. But that's something common you'll see with selling action, and makes it a little bit more enticing if you're a good player in the event you're playing, but you still want to reduce your risk. So that's the second way that the numbers are a little bit skewed when it comes to these big buy-in tournaments, and people aren't actually risking that much money just as an individual. The third way, which is sort of an afterthought but is something similar, is called swapping. So let's say I'm entering the same tournament as Brando here, okay? We're playing the Run It Up Reno main event, and let's say we want to reduce the risk to ourselves. It's a lot of money to us, we want to reduce the risk. I can say, Brando, do you want to swap 5%?
Okay.
Right? Okay, booked. So that means I have 95% of myself, and I have 5% of Brandon. And Brandon has 95% of himself, but 5% of me. Now this is really common with recreational poker players and poker pros alike to reduce the variance. You see it a lot in the World Series of Poker main event, where people will have 1% swaps with like 20 people, because they basically have little horses in the field that they get to follow, even if their run doesn't go well. And it's pretty likely they'll get something back. So those are three ways that the buy-in of a tournament isn't necessarily the buy-in of the tournament for everyone playing. You can reduce your edge by getting a backing deal, selling action, or swapping to make it effectively smaller and smarter for your bankroll. For me personally, my poker story, I've never been a backed player because I think there is some pros to being backed. When you're in a stable, you usually get coaching for your game, you get mental coaching, you get a community of players, you get people that have oversight on you and have a rooting interest in you, and that can be motivating. But you do give up some of your profit, right? You're giving up 50% of your profit, and your losses, it's not a debt, but you need to get out of your losses before you can make money for yourself. And as a professional poker player, that's how you survive, right? So backing never really made a lot of sense to me. I'd just prefer to play smaller stakes where I have a bigger win rate and I can keep all the profit and just manage my risk. But a lot of people do that. What I've done pretty consistently throughout my career up until about a year or 2 years ago was sell action. So when I was just sort of getting my grounds, like I was crushing things like the big 22, like $22 and $33 buy-ins, but 215 was out of my range, I would sell action on a forum and be like, okay guys, 50% of the Sunday Million, and I'd put it up, people would buy it, and basically I'd reduce the risk for myself. So I've done that pretty consistently, and I still do it on Stake Kings, which you guys can check out. I think there's a link in the description to Stake Kings. We'll throw it in this video for sure. But nowadays I just do it kind of for fun. Like my bankroll is in a situation where I can manage most of the tournaments I'm playing, and I know I have consistent income because of other sources of revenue like Twitch and YouTube and sponsorships and stuff. So I can afford to be a bit more gambly with my personal bankroll management. And I don't really sell action because I need to, but typically I'll put up a couple percent here and there so people can have a rooting interest in the play. Okay guys, that's about all I have to say about selling action, staking, and swaps. Did you guys know about this before? I'd love to know. Well, if you did know about it, you're probably not going to comment, but if you were unaware about this side of poker, please let me know down in the comments and anything you think about it. What are your guys' experience with staking, selling action, swapping? Do you think it makes sense? I know as a consumer of poker content, I would love if everyone just had their own action, but also at the same time, I'm a player and I love to reduce my risk sometimes, right? So I understand why it exists, and it allows you to not be at a tournament like Prague, but be able to buy a piece of someone and like have a swim. So that's pretty cool, right? Anyways, that's all from me. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you like this video, and see you next time.